My name's Amata, and in this Red Gaming Tech video I am here with some recommendations from the Steam Autumn Sale 2017. There are an absolute fuck ton, and yes, that is an official measurement, look it up, of games on sale. I'm not going to go through all of them because I'd probably be here till the Christmas sale, which obviously is going to be late next month. However, I'm going to go through some of my recommendations for some of the top picks in this particular sale. So let's begin, shall we, with a game that I seemingly can't recommend enough, of Dark Souls 3. This game is pretty damn cheap, to be honest. You can get just the game for 60% off, making it $15.99, or you can get the deluxe edition, which has the season pass, and of course all of the items in the season pass are now out. That gives you... that is rather 50% off at $29.99, but even just the base game for £16 is an absolute steal. I have put over 100 hours into my copy of Dark Souls 3, so safe to say I like the game. In my opinion, it's definitely one of the stronger entries into the series. I know that's a bit of a controversial opinion, but I actually really like Dark Souls 3. So yeah, if perhaps you haven't played it, if you're waiting for it to drop down on sale, or if you're curious about the Dark Souls series, I would definitely recommend it. You can tell they've learned a lot from Bloodborne and just their years developing Dark Souls and have refined things somewhat, I would say. So since we've got quite a bit to get through, I'm just going to move swiftly on to the next game in our list, which could not be more different than the one I just said, and it is none other than Planet Coaster. Now, this game had recently just gotten a rather massive update which has added quite a few things into the game. Now, I would say most of you know what Planet Coaster is, but it pretty much is like, you know, Roller Coaster Tycoon of old, but obviously modernised, and compared to the actual modern Roller Coaster Tycoon game that was released, this is a really, really good game, and was actually one of my potential contenders for Game of the Year last year. Now, when it released, the management options of the actual park were a bit limited. It was more like a, hey, general build your own theme park, build your rides, get it looking exactly how you want, customize your rides, have a ton of stuff. All that was awesome, but the actual management aspect was a bit lacking. There wasn't really any customization there, but now they've added a ton of stuff into the game when it comes to customization. For example, there's now, like, you have to take staff breaks into account, staff energy, and obviously that means you have to have enough staff and obviously keep all those staff happy. You don't have to worry about crime and thieves in the park, and obviously have security guards, that sort of thing. And I would absolutely recommend this game if you like your management games, if you liked your Roller Coaster Tycoon games back in the day, then this game is absolutely one I would recommend, especially for the price of 55% off, making it £13.49. Next up on our rather lengthy list is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Now, this game is definitely an interesting one. The gameplay itself kind of goes between like explory, walky kind of stuff and combat, which, you know, is functional. It's nothing particularly exciting. You know, you've got your block, you've got your dodge, you've got your light attack, you've got your heavy attack. However, what makes this game interesting is its story and its world. Now, this is one of the very, very few games to tackle the very sensitive topic of mental illness, and the way that it does it is really, really fantastic. It's all in the audio, the presentation, and of course the performance from the actress who did the obviously animations and stuff for Senua herself. I would absolutely recommend this game. It is quite unique in a lot of ways, and if you're definitely one of those people who want a game that is an example of games tackling adult and serious themes and doing it well, this game is definitely one to play, especially when it is 25% off, making it £18.74. Now, that is quite expensive for a Steam sale, I will grant you. So even if you add it to your wish list for future to see if it goes down a bit more, this did only come out in August, so I'm not really surprised to see it only go down this little bit. But I would still recommend this game, even if you do end up playing it on the Christmas sale or maybe next year in the summer sale or something like that. However, let's move on to Doom. I don't think this game needs much introduction, do you? It's Doom, it's absolutely fantastic, it was on my Game of the Year list for last year, and it was exactly what we wanted from a revival of the classic FPS series. It is an absolute steal, 50% off, making it £9.99. This game at that cheap price is almost criminal, because this game is seriously good. The combat is so satisfying, the music is awesome. It is a Doom game. Despite the lackluster multiplayer, I would 100% recommend this because the single player is so good. And if you somehow missed it, or it was too expensive for you when it came out, or whatever, definitely would recommend. So let's move swiftly on to Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Now obviously Shadow of War just released, but obviously that's a new release, it's going to be very expensive. This game, not so much. The Game of the Year edition, which obviously has all the DLC, is 60% off, making it £6.39. Now obviously this does not have all the troubling microtransaction stuff that unfortunately is in Shadow of War, but it does still have the Nemesis system. Obviously it doesn't have a bunch of other stuff that was added in Shadow of War, all the improvements, that sort of thing, but to be honest this game is really good, surprisingly good to be honest. I don't think anyone expected it to be as good as it is. So if you missed it, if you're looking for a really satisfying time sink, you could do a hell of a lot worse than Shadow of Mordor. Speaking of time sinks, next one is Ftl Faster than Light. This is what I sometimes refer to jokingly as Battlestar Galactica Simulator, because basically things will go horribly wrong. It is a roguelike, but a very different one to say like Binding of Isaac or Enter the Gungeon. It is basically you are part of the sort of Federation, and you have to go across the galaxy, leveling up your ship, getting new parts, getting new crew, you know, improve your shields, that sort of thing, trying to get back and beat the rebel fleet with some very vital piece of information that you have. So very kind of an interesting juxtapose, because normally the rebels are the good guys in a lot of games, and obviously this game is not the case. So it is, as I said, a roguelike, all randomly generated. Things can go really well or really poorly. I have never actually completed this game. I played it an absolute ton, but it's Battlestar Simulator for a reason. So yeah, it is a sort of spaceship sim combined with a roguelike, and it is really interesting. A very different take on the roguelike formula. And obviously as you play, you get new ship types and new weapons and stuff like that unlocked. So there is some progression as you move through the game. And to be honest, this game is obscenely cheap. It's 75% off, making it £1.74. Or if you want to get the game plus the soundtrack, it's £2.49. Or if you already own the game, the soundtrack is 69p, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, Ftl. Can't not recommend it enough, really. Or can't recommend it enough, that's what I meant to say. Speaking of, let's move swiftly on to a game that you've probably seen a few times in a few Steam sales, but it's still worth a mention. It is, of course, Bastion. This is, of course, the game that put Supergiant Games on the map. Because, well, look at it. It is absolutely gorgeous. These graphics are absolutely stunning. But it isn't just a pretty face. It also has a really interesting story, a really interesting world, and satisfying gameplay. If I were to describe the gameplay, I would say it is an action RPG of sorts. But it is really the story and the world, and of course the excellent narration that make this game. It is genuinely a masterpiece of a game. It is 75% off, making it £4.24. Now I will mention the other games that they've done in a second, but there's also a Superdrive Bundle that I want to go into a little bit. You get Bastion, the soundtrack, Transistor, the Transistor soundtrack, Pyre and Pyre soundtrack for 66% off, making it £20.61. So if you want to go back and play all of the Supergiant games, and you could do a hell of a lot worse, you know, if you're looking for something to spend your time on, then that is a pretty damn good deal, considering you get the soundtracks as well. And if you do actually own Bastion, the soundtrack is 75% off, excuse me, making it £1.49. And I can personally attest that the soundtrack is really good. So, with all that said, let's move on to the next Supergiant game, which is Transistor. Now, this game definitely has some similarities to Bastion. It is a similar viewpoint, for instance, but it is also very, very different. Although it is also a action RPG, the graphics are very different, and the world and story are very different. But the main thing is, of course, the gameplay. Now, you basically have a bunch of plugins that you can kind of put into your sword to have different abilities. You can definitely customize your skill set. And also, while you can play alive by just, moving around and attacking as you normally would, you can also basically pause the game, as it were, and queue up a bunch of actions. So there is a interesting sort of strategy layer to it as well. So if you've got a high priority target that you want to get rid of, you can sort of target them first, and then move around and put yourself in a better position, and of course utilise your different skills and that sort of thing. It is quite a difficult game, actually, as certain abilities can break when you die, which definitely adds an interesting challenge. And we also have, again, wonderful narration. You seemingly can't have a Supergiant game without excellent narration to go along with it. And let's finish up the Supergiant collection, shall we, with Pyre. Now, if you are at all curious about this game, go check out my video on it that I did not too long after its game came out. This game is really, really different from literally anything, A, that I've personally played, and B, in Supergiant's back catalogue. It is a party-based RPG, but it is very, very story-based, very, very text-based. There is very little narration. The narration that is in it is very well done, as you would expect, but it is a lot of text, a lot of reading, a lot of lore and books and that sort of thing, character bios to read. But the actual combat is really, really unique. It's almost like a sports game. You basically have a pyre on each side of the map. You have yours, and you of course have the enemies, and your goal is to basically get the orb into the opponent's pyre a few times, and obviously each time you throw it into their pyre it does damage, and when it reaches 0 you win. And you can only control one of your 3 characters at a time, so you basically have to move around the map, switch between the characters, sort of pass the orb to each other, and try and get the orb into the pyre. As I said, it is almost like a sports game in the combat, so it is a weird one, but I would heartily recommend it. So let's speed things up a little bit as this video is starting to drag on a little. Our next contender is Pony Island. Now, you may also remember this game from my Game of the Year list last year. This is a very strange one, and one of the sort of meta games that we had come out within fairly short time with each other. Let's try that again with some English. They came out close to each other. There we go. That's not quite how I was trying to word it there, but you get my point. Anyway. So it is ostensibly a puzzle game, but it's also really meta with like a game within a game and trying to solve the story of what happened to the person that you're playing and also what's going on within the game, that sort of thing. It is a very strange experience with the game often talking to you and taunting you, and there's sort of like a malevolent force within this arcade machine that you're playing. It is really weird. I don't want to say too much more because I don't want to spoil it, to be honest with you. But it's definitely an interesting and unique experience. It is also really cheap. It is £1.31, 67% off, so not too bad at all. Next up, however, is Watch Dogs 2. Now, Watch Dogs 1 is also on sale, but, Watch Dogs 2, however, was a massive, and I do mean massive, improvement over the original Watch Dogs. It actually has personality and character, and it's actually fun, the sort of thing you would expect from a game about, hacking stuff. It is way better. It's obviously more expensive than Watch Dogs 1, but between us, the bigger asking price is worth it, considering it's only about £5 difference. Anywho, it is 66% off, making it £16.99, so if perhaps you missed it when it first came out, I would highly recommend Watch Dogs 2 if you're looking for some hackery fun times. Speaking of, rather, we also have a bunch of deals for Wolfenstein. And this does actually include the latest one, which of course is the new Colossus. Surprisingly, considering it only came out not even a month ago yet, it is 50% off, making it £19.99. So if perhaps you waited a few weeks, your patience has been rewarded. It's insanely cheap at the moment. However, we also have a 2-pack for the New Order and the Old Blood. Total $9.99 at 50% off. You're saving quite the bundle there, as individually, they are $7.49 each. And we also have the originals like Wolfenstein 3D, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, and so on. So, our final entry for this video is going to be another stellar experience in Nier Automata, or Automata, not exactly sure on the pronunciation. Now, this game is honestly really, really good. In itself, if you look at the core gameplay, it is a very fun, very satisfying Platinum-style hack-and-slash spectacle fighter, where you move around 3D plane, you've got your fast attacks, your heavy attacks, and you've got your little helper buddy, and it is very satisfying to sort of dodge around, do a ton of damage, and just generally feel like a badass. However, what makes this game like move just above being a really good spectacle fighter, which in itself would be fine, is the story and the characters, and how those characters and story are actually woven into the gameplay, and how the gameplay actually kind of plays with you a little bit, and like how the camera is used, and the game kind of messes with you a little bit, and the story is really interesting. I do not want to say too much because it would be criminal to spoil this game. Play it, play through all the scenarios, because there are a few. It is worth sticking with it, honestly. This game is one of the best I've played, period. So, you can't really go wrong, especially when it is 40% off, making it £23.99. Again, expensive for the Steam sale, but to be honest, this game is absolutely worth it, and even if you add it to your wish list for later, it is definitely something I would recommend. So, with all that said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.